Hello ladies and gentlemen, Willie here. Two things to talk about today. Phase 2 has finally been announced, and we also have confirmation that Blizzard are going to be doing Fresh, Classic, and a lot sooner than expected. Phase 2 will be on the 15th of September worldwide, including Tempest Keep and Serpent Shrine Cabin, the Ogrel and Sketis dailies, a new PvP season, and a bunch of other new content. We're coming up at this point in time to 3 months of Phase 1. Fun fact about this, there's been more notice time for the actual release of Phase 2 of TBC than the actual release of the expansion itself. I was one of those people who were always in favour of releasing the content separate from Tier 4 to Tier 5, because you could always bring out the content sooner than you wanted to originally, but once it's out there you can't exactly take it back. It just gives a bit more longevity to the game. If everything came out at once, which is how it would have been correct to the actual release of TBC, you'd have probably had TK and SSC on farm by now, and in a short period of time be thinking we're Tier 6 already. In fact, in actual TBC, Lady Vash was defeated in a somewhat dubious kill by Nihilum in 73 days, and then done by the famous world first legit in 109 days by Method. Kel'Thas wasn't defeated until the patch 2.1 nerfs though, and lived 130 days in comparison. And according to Warcraft logs, there are some 15,000 guilds which are 3 out of 3 on the 25-man content, being over 375,000 people, and there are 17,000 guilds who have cleared Kara. So we're not exactly rushing it, let me put it like that. There's been a lot of big updates for retail in the 9.1.5 patch 2. The ripcord has finally been pulled, and the feedback from over 1 year ago is finally being taken into account. I'm not going to go over all of it, but it reads like a compendium of player requested changes for ages which are now being done. This all seems like the big we are sorry patch across retail and classic, and people still aren't going to be happy with it, especially on the retail side, and rightly so. We're going to have people coming out of the woodwork saying, look, people finally get what they've been asking for and they still complain. People are never going to be happy and just want to complain about the game, as if the feedback that had been given for Shadowlands wasn't done at the beta stage of the game, and Blizzard said, no, it's fine, we'll get it right this time, we'll fix it, and we've ended up in the same position that we've been in for the past 2 expansions. It just keeps going in a cycle. I imagine Shadowlands is a bit too far gone for much more of a course correction, other than the same old solutions from Legion and BFA, and putting temporary power stuff on vendors, speeding up catching mechanics, more alt accessibility. Eyes are really on 10.0 at this point for retail, which will still be a long way off, but we'll have to keep it in mind. Because the other thing that popped up, and the main subject of the video, is Classic Error has been put back on the PTR, and shortly after that, during the post-release, we're also working on something for WoW Classic players who've told us they'd like a chance at a fresh start, and we'll be sharing more of our plans on that soon. Now, fan server players have proven time and time again there will always be players who will come back for the next fresh, whatever you think of Blizzard, which probably isn't all that much at the moment. Their servers will always have people, they have population. Whatever Blizzard puts out will always be the biggest server going, and that will get people to play it even if they wouldn't otherwise. It matters a tremendous deal. And if I'm Blizzard and looking into how games are going at the moment, it's not going well. We have tweets going out about work being halted. Retail isn't doing too well. TBC's chugging along. It's had quite the drop off, but we have phase 2 to pick things back up. Classic Error isn't performing just in any capacity at all. It's not retained a player base whatsoever. Do we leave Error as it is, or try and get a fresh out as soon as possible to try and get more people back on the classic hype train once again? It worked tremendously well the first time around. For me, Classic Fresh already feels like a bit of a break glass if emergency kind of deal, and that it's frankly way too early to be considering this, to be honest. Who would be on the Fresh after all? There'd be those who missed the opportunity the first time around just because, well, life has got in the way. People who prefer Classic over TBC, I know you're out there. People who are mad about Fresh and will get convulsions from walking down the dairy aisle in your supermarket because they see the word too much. As for me, what would the ideal Fresh look like? Well, if I'm honest, it doesn't exist. I just spent 18 months playing the game. I mean, really playing the game. I played Classic a lot. And current Classic is not built like a seasonal game either. Fresh, to me at least, only makes sense if you embrace the seasonality of it rather than trying to roll out the content fully again. There are two things for me which must be made clear at the outset of Fresh before it even goes live or you can reserve names. What is the long-term goal of Fresh servers? Will they be forever? Do they go to TBC? Do they merge into Error? Do they get new content after the final phase, or something else entirely? What should we expect out of them? And secondly, what happens to Classic era and the people who have paid money to copy their characters there? Opening a fresh server will make them transition from being dead to being really, really dead. Is that just a thanks for your money, play fresh instead kind of thing? Or is anything else happening there? Now, Blizzard did their own survey for fresh some time ago, as well as re-adding it to the PTR, which is notably in phase 1 with the Chronoboon. And while some of the ideas on their survey, which are interesting and would shake things up a little, such as old AV, no world buffs in raid, no debuff limit, I don't think it's anywhere near enough, to be honest. Classic has some absolutely fundamental issues which the player base has very clearly exposed. I think if there's one change we can all collectively agree on as a community, it's that if you pick the mage class on the character create screen and then try to press enter world, your PC just automatically closes down and possibly deletes system 32 as well. For real though, mage boosting is just got to go. Sure, it was fun to see what people could do when pushing the limits of the class, pulling literal entire dungeons of Mara or ZG or Scarlet Monastery. It was great to see, but let's not do that again. As for how it's done, less XP when grouped with higher level players, mod pathing changes, which would be nice, it's not going to happen to be honest, or just, you know, deleting the improved in Blizzard talent, yeah, any of those could really work. But something about mage's ability to boost, as well as gold farm, should be given a good look at. Secondly, bots, goes without saying really, look at the state of TBC. Imagine bots going in with 18 months worth of practice of what works. More has to be done, as well as harsher punishment for gold buyers where it can be proven that it's happened. As a side note to gold buyers, I wish something could be done about gold bid runs, to be honest. I appreciate it's not something Blizzard can actively police in any meaningful manner, and I understand the benefits to it. Yes, something big drops, but it's not for your class, you still get gold. People are more incentivized to stay throughout the run. I understand it, really, I do. It's just, my god, this thing encourages gold buying so much, more so than anything else in the game, when you have items which a limited number of people can bid on in an environment with an item they might not see drop again for a period of 2 months, because loot in Classic is just all over the place. But if gold buying was a lot rarer, then perhaps it would be a bit more legit. Consumables with no world buffs and buffed raids, assuming those are a thing, consume usage will be massively increased, especially if you're going to be wiping a lot. Add on top of that, not enough done about bots herbing, it then becomes impossible for the average player to compete. Buying gold gets very rampant again, casuals can't keep up, the consumes and keep chain wiping on Vale and eventually quit because their raid leader insists they need to pop absolutely everything every single attempt. Or, you know, maybe the WoW token, that'll fix it, right? We can consider herb spawns, taking the TBC route of how fell lotus work, maybe the actual volume of herbs required for consumables. This is a way looking forwards thing, but if raids are actually harder, this will be a problem. Or put in the TBC consumable rework to where everything just doesn't stack, which probably makes a lot more sense if you actually want to buff the raid content, because it puts a more even playing field at the power level where you can expect people to be. We need a much more hands-on approach to server balancing. We have seen how bad things can get when left alone, something similar perhaps to Final Fantasy XIV, where new characters are prevented from being made if a certain threshold is met, updating every 15 minutes or so, and an on-screen indication of not just the overall population per server, but for both Horde and Alliance, and a fixed ratio where it can't surpass 45 to 55 or so. On top of that, I hope lessons are learned from how the rollout of Classic servers were done, where there weren't anywhere near enough initially and then loads of new ones had to be brought out and it was kind of a mess. For me, one of the changes I'd like to see, which is probably a bit of a random one, but the value of transfer characters' sellable items needs to count towards the gold cap against the prices on the target server that they're moving to. So if the average price over the past month on server A of a Black Lotus is 50G and on server B it's 200G, a player can transfer with a gold cap of 2k or whatever it is, and then 10 stacks of Black Lotus. And that's a very easy and abusable workaround, and it's especially used by gold sellers and bots to get their goods to market. Next up, I don't like the ranking system at all. I think it's the worst thing about vanilla. People are always going to play games in unhealthy ways, but in order to rank up above, say, rank 12 or so, depending on your server, you kind of have to play in an unhealthy way. I don't particularly have any solid solution. I like the competitive nature of it, but I think it should be between Horde and Alliance on your server, not between Alliance and Alliance or Horde and Horde. It doesn't make any sense to compete among your own faction. And also the ranking gear is incredibly powerful if it's coming out in phase 2 again. So I don't think it should be easily accessible either. Maybe you just straight up hold back the epic sets till AQ is out. Either way, there needs to be some balance between accessibility to the gear and ability to work towards the rank a bit more in your own time, rather than being forced to play every single day. Those are just a few things I'd like to see to the baseline game. Then we have the dream world of Classic Plus. My god, it's such an incredible opportunity to create an entirely new game around the spirit of Classic, and I think it's going to pass Blizzard by because there's still a few bullets left in the gun, and the one foot that's Classic they're standing on needs them to go straight into it. We could have new zones, raids, making certain specs actually functional for what they're designed to do, new mechanics in raids, not just bigger numbers, that's a big one, reworking professions to contain just less random garbage, more high-end profession gear, new resources in the world, new consumables, tier sets for all specializations. The sky is the limit for this, and the format that makes Classic what it is in a very solid MMO world is already there. Imagine if they stopped going vertical with progression and gave horizontal a proper go. It's not without its own issues either, like power creep or old content relevance. Old school RuneScape is the definitive example that this works if the developer puts time and effort into it, which is where I suppose we're going to struggle. I reckon the only way you're going to get a good population pack onto Classic is to change it a lot and make it more seasonal, or just do it way later after people have had a good chance to play TBC and might want to go back to it again. I thought they were going to do fresh in Phase 4 of TBC Zulaman because it's just very light on content by itself. There's no new 25-man raids and there's no new arena season. That to me seems like the ideal time to do it. Regardless though, it's not going to be anywhere near as big as it was the first time around, and expect the no changes back to retail crowd to somehow, some way still be thinking this is a thing that's happening or is going to happen again. World of Warcraft is Blizzard's flagship game. It's the first thing when you think about when you hear the word Blizzard. Even releasing a decade-old game, the player base is massive and dwarfs nearly every single other MMO out there going. It's so critically important to get fresh right now and set it up for its future successes now. Give us a roadmap. Give us the intention for the Classic server. Give the game a future and an actual chance rather than just getting the last few dollars out of it and calling it a day. Fan servers have proven that this works for over a decade. Don't let the Russian guy in a basement powering a server off a hamster wheel be as true as it is. I think the survey Blizzard put out is a good start, but I would personally like to see more than that. Anyway, there we have it. Phase 2 releasing, 9.15, people on retail getting what they want, and fresh coming soon. Sooner than expected. That's all. Let me know your thoughts, guys. Thank you all so much for watching and listening in, and I will see you in the next one very soon.